So hello, good morning. So today we are discussing the Kepler's laws of planetary motion. We know Kepler deduced his laws of planetary motion from the observational data of Tycho Brahe. So Tycho Brahe lived in Denmark. He born in 1546. He was having a very good relation with the king of the Denmark at that time. So that is King Frederick II, and he built a palace in an island called Haven, and then he installed a observatory also, and he named that as Urania Brock. So actually Urania meaning the Urania was the goddess of the sky, and in that using that observatory he continued his astronomical observations for some 20 years, and using that 20 years data he collected a lot of data, huge amount of data, which actually explained which was sufficient to explain the heliocentric model of the solar system. Now the interesting thing is that the Tycho Brahe was not believed in the heliocentric model of the universe. He was believed in a model in which the sun is revolving around the earth, and the sun and moon are revolving around the earth, but other planets are revolving around the sun. He proposed such a model, but from his data, his own data, he found that his model cannot be explained using these observations. Now, again he catalogued 1000 stars, and he found that the comets are not a part of the atmosphere of the earth, so that is above the atmosphere of the earth. And by 1597, so he had some problems with the king of that time, so he went to Germany and settled in Prague. And in 1600 he appointed Kepler as his assistant, and in 1601, so after 1 year, he died. Tycho Brahe died. So when Tycho Brahe died, he handed over his the entire data to Kepler, and according to Kepler, his his sentence was something like this: "May I not seem to have lived in vain." So this is according to Kepler. So this is his last words: "May I not seem to have lived in vain." Anyway, so Kepler worked on the data taken by Tycho Brahe. So this huge amount of data, he worked on it, and after 8 years after the death of Tycho Brahe, that is by 1609, he introduced the first two laws of the laws of planetary motion. So we know the first law, that is every planet moves around the sun in an elliptical orbit with the sun at one of the foci of the ellipse. Now the second law is that every planet, the radial vector drawn from the sun to the planet, sweep out equal areas in equal intervals of time. That means the aerial velocity of the planet is a constant. First law is every planet moves around the sun in an elliptical orbit with the sun at one of the focus. Second law is, if you draw, this is the sun at the focus. So this is the position of the planet, one instant, 1, this is second position. So the time taken for it is, say, some dt. You measure the area, this area, and when the planet reaches this point, you measure the area set out by the radial vector from the planet to the sun in the same interval of time dt. So you can see that both the area will be the same. Now, for the areas to be the same, here the planet should move slowly, and when it approaches the sun, it should move with higher speeds. So then only the area will be, area set out by the radial vector from the sun to the planet will be a constant. So anyway, the area velocity of the planet is a constant, that is the same. And third law is, he arrived at the third law in 1619, that is after 18 years after the death of Tycho Brahe. That is the law specifying the period of the planet around the sun. So you know that, so in the case of an ellipse, this line, this is called the major axis, and through the center, if you draw a perpendicular to this, this is called the minor axis. The half of the length of the major axis is, you can name it as A, semi-major axis, that is called the semi-major axis. Half of the length of the minor axis, that is called the semi-minor axis, that is B. Now, according to this third law of Kepler, if t is the period of the planet around the sun, the square of the period t squared is proportional to cube of the semi-major axis. If A is the semi-major axis, t squared is proportional to A cube. So this was his third law. And so Kepler arrived these laws using the observational data of Tycho Brahe. So while Kepler deduced these laws, so there was it was not widely accepted in the scientific community. But later, when Newton published his Principia and explained the law of gravitation, Newton's law of gravitation is published. So that is in the year 1687. So Newton born in the year some 1642, I think, so on 25th December. 25th December 1642. So that is the Newton born on this day. And in 1687 he published Principia. So there he explained the law of gravitation, and using the Newton's law of gravitation, he proved the three laws proposed by Kepler. After that, this got wide acceptance among the scientific community. Now we can prove these three laws. Actually, this first law is proved in the last section. So we have discussed in the earlier lectures on planetary motion. We found that the motion of the planet around the sun is in elliptical orbits. And now the other two laws we can discuss. And actually the second law, the area velocity of the planet is a constant, that we have proved in the first semester itself. That is the example 6.3 of Kleppner and Coulomb. You can see that the area velocity of the planet will be a constant. So anyway, we are going to discuss the second and third laws in this lecture. Now the second law is the aerial velocity of the planet is a constant. Now suppose this is the position of the sun, that is at one of the foci of the ellipse, and the planet is moving from the point P to the point Q of the ellipse in a interval of time delta t. P be the position of the planet here. After delta t seconds, it moves to the position of the point Q. Now, when the planet is at the point P, let R be the distance from the Sun to the planet. When it reaches the point Q, R changes with the time, so we can say R of t plus delta t, that is equal to R plus delta R be the distance between the Sun and the planet, and it is at the point Q. R plus delta t is the position of the planet. Now, there is a, here the length is R, here the length is R plus delta R. There is a small change in this distance. Now let delta theta is the angle between R and R plus delta R, these two radial vectors. Now, what is the area of this region? Area of this radial vector. What is this area set out by the radial vector in this delta t seconds? This angle is delta theta. Now this can be written as delta A is equal to half of R plus delta R into R delta theta. What is this? Simply half into base of this, actually can be written as a triangle, half of the base into height. What is height? So if you draw a perpendicular from here to here, so this distance. So this length is R and this length is also R. So what about this distance? If delta theta is, when you draw a perpendicular from here to this line, this length will be, if this length is R, this length also will be R. So that, like this. If this is the point O where the position of the Sun, since it's R, draw a perpendicular, so this both will have the same distance. This length will be equal to R into delta theta. Now, this height is R into delta theta. So what about this length? This is R plus delta R. That is half of R plus delta R into height. Half of base into height. Then that is the area of that particular triangle. So we can write it as half of R into R d theta. That is half of R squared delta theta plus half of delta R into R delta theta. This is half of R squared delta theta plus half of delta R into R delta theta. Let us see what is this fraction. This fraction is half of delta R. If R is this distance will be delta R. So that is marked in red here, delta R. The height is R delta theta. R delta theta into delta R. That simply represents the area of the small triangle. Small triangle. Now we can find this expression, limit delta t tending to 0 of delta A by delta t. This is simply equal to dA by dt is equal to half of R squared into delta theta by delta t. Here of course there is a limit delta t tending to 0 plus half of half of delta R into R into delta theta by delta t. Okay. What is this? If delta t is tending to 0, the displacement of the point P to the next point will be very small. So this change in delta r will be very small, and also delta theta will be very small. So this angle, this area will be negligibly small. So we can neglect this term. So we will get dA by dt is equal to the aerial velocity is equal to half of r squared into limit delta t tending to 0 of delta theta by delta t. So that is simply d theta by dt. So you get dA by dt is equal to rate of change in aerial velocity is equal to half of r squared into d theta by dt. Now, we know that the angular momentum in central force motion, the angular momentum is given by the expression L is equal, magnitude of angular momentum is given by the expression L is equal mu r squared theta dot. So in central force motion, the angular momentum is a constant. So this is the mu is the reduced mass of a two-body system. And angular momentum can be written as equal to L into mu r squared theta dot. So we can write here d theta by dt is simply theta dot. So we have dA by dt is equal to half of r squared theta dot. But from this expression we can write r squared theta dot is equal to r squared theta dot is equal to L by mu. So from here we can write dA by dt is equal to aerial velocity of the planet is equal to, for r we can substitute for r squared theta dot. This r squared theta dot L by, that is L by dA by dt is equal to L by 2. Now for a particular two-body problem, mu, the reduced mass, will be a constant, and we found that angular momentum also will be a constant, both in magnitude of angular momentum and direction of angular momentum will be constant. So right hand side is a constant, that means dA by dt is a constant. So this is the proof of the second law of Kepler. The aerial velocity of the planet will be a constant. Aerial velocity of the planet will be a constant.